We've all heard the saying, once a cheater, always a cheater, but is that really true? And if you've cheated, or your girlfriend has cheated, or your wife has cheated, does that mean they are destined to always cheat, or you're destined to always cheat? And if it does mean that, is there anything that you can do to turn things around and save your relationship? We're also going to look at the statistics in this video as well, because they don't lie. Unlike people. Hi, my name is Jeff Campbell from DivorcedParentsClub.com. Let's keep going. So if any of you have followed me for any length of time, you may have heard me mention that I worked for Whole Foods Market for over 2 decades. And there was a guy, a friend of mine, who was very high up in HR in the company, who had a very famous saying that he liked to say all the time, and that was, there's no better predictor of future behavior than past behavior. And I think that is generally true, and I think it applies to a lot of things, but it can also apply to cheating. And if that's true, then that would make the saying, once a cheater, always a cheater, accurate, right? Well, not necessarily. For starters, I'm a firm believer that anyone can change. Now, having said that, the vast majority of people will not change, no matter what the behavior is, whether they engage in bad habits like smoking or overeating or eating too much junk food, not exercising, whatever. Most people are happy with how they're living their lives, and they're not going to change their behavior for almost any reason. That being said, they can change at any time. The person who's 100 pounds overweight can change their mind and their decision to be overweight at any time. They can always decide to eat less and exercise more. For the vast majority of people who are overweight, it really is that simple. But a lot of people won't choose that, and that's okay. A lot of people may be happy with where they're at, and that's okay too. I'm not trying to body shame anyone here, but I am saying that we have the capacity in our brains to change what we don't like about ourselves at any time, but most people aren't going to actually put forth the effort to do that. So where does that leave us with regards to cheating? Well, first of all, just know that if someone has cheated, let's say your girlfriend has cheated on you and you've just found out about it and you're not sure what to do about it, just know that if they don't take any action, they're very likely going to do it again. So what kind of actions can we take if we've cheated, or what kind of actions should they take, or should we insist that they take to prevent them from cheating in the future? Well, first I'm going to tell you a story. I actually cheated on my now ex-wife back in 2013. It's not something that I am proud of, and I've been on both ends of that. I've been cheated on, and I was the cheater in that case with my wife at the time in 2013. And I can tell you the steps that I took to change my behavior so that I could ensure I never did that again, and I didn't do that again, and I'm not going to do that at any point in the future with anyone. But these are the steps that I took. First of all, I actually quit drinking for about 3 years. I'm a firm believer that alcohol never made anyone do anything they didn't want to do, but it does lower our inhibitions, and it kind of can allow us to justify poor choices more readily than we would if we were sober. So I felt like it was the right choice for me at the time to totally quit drinking. I was still working for Whole Foods Market at that time, and Whole Foods Market, despite it being health food, the culture is very much a culture of kind of partying after work. After all, it's the service industry. It's like restaurants, and everybody goes out drinking afterwards and stays out till 2 a.m. So that was the mindset that I was in at that time. So I had to shift out of that mindset in order to change my own mindset. So I quit drinking for 3 years about. Then I gave my wife at the time, again, we are now divorced, and our divorce has nothing to do with that affair in 2013. But at that time, I gave her the passwords to my phone and email and social media accounts and everything like that. I wanted full transparency with her so that she could learn to trust me again. I also over-communicated my whereabouts anytime I wasn't either at work or at home. And I very rarely initially went anywhere other than work or home unless she was with me. I really wanted to earn her trust back, and I spent about 2 years behaving this way so that I could do just that. My actual affair only lasted about 2 months. And I do think there's a correlation between how long an affair lasted and whether there was just one person, and how long it takes your girlfriend or your spouse to heal from that. So real quick before we keep going, And if you like this video and you want to see more like it, hit that like button, then smash that subscribe button and the bell notification button too. And if you have something you'd like to see in a future video, leave me that in the comments down below. So I told you we'd look at some statistics. So what percentage of people actually cheat in relationships? Well, if we're talking about married couples, about 20% of married couples cheat. If we're talking about unmarried couples though, about 70% of people cheat. That's a huge difference, and it does signify that there's just something psychological about getting married, the act of getting married, that makes us much more likely to fully commit than if we're just living together as an unmarried couple, or not even living together, just boyfriend and girlfriend. And then of course, as it should be no surprise, men tend to cheat almost twice as much as women. And if we want to get specific, about 22% of men tend to cheat compared to just 14% of women. Now, the big number, of course, is when somebody cheats, how likely are they to actually cheat again? And this number is huge, maybe not surprisingly, but 45% of people who have cheated once are more likely to do it again. But as I mentioned earlier, it really has a lot to do with whether or not they make any actual effort to change their behavior. Going to therapy is a great way to change your mindset. Taking on a new practice like martial arts or yoga or meditation, something like that that helps us kind of refocus our brain and our priorities. Again, if somebody's constantly going out to the bars and they're cheating at the bars, then maybe quitting drinking, or at least not going to bars, is a great way to kind of rewire the brain and rewire our habits and how our brain thinks about things. You've got to take action if you want to move your life in a different direction, and that goes for you if you were the cheater, or your girlfriend or your wife if they were the cheater. Now, the big question, since we know 22% of men cheat versus only 14% of women, why do men cheat? And I can speak to this both as a guy and as someone who once cheated on his wife, again back in 2013. So surprisingly, perhaps, it's not for sex. Guys don't tend to cheat for sex. I don't know that women do either. At the point in time when I made the decision to cheat on my wife, and I'm going to tell you this, but I'm also going to add that there's absolutely no justification for cheating whatsoever. However, it takes two people to make a marriage and it takes two people to break a marriage. My decision was terrible to cheat, but our marriage was not in a good place, and both of us contributed to that at the point in time when I made a terrible decision. But what was I looking for that I wasn't getting from my wife? At that particular time, she had just quit drinking a few months earlier, and that was after a lot of heavy drinking and using it as a coping mechanism to deal with uncomfortable feelings and things like that. Let's just call it that. And let's just say that not drinking, after years and years of drinking as a coping mechanism, meant that her emotions were really raw and she was feeling a lot of feelings, and she didn't have much to give to me in terms of emotional support, emotional intimacy, things like that. Now, in retrospect, I should have been a lot more sensitive to what she was going through and been more supportive of that, been more patient. That's what I should have done. I didn't do that though. I just got tired of feeling neglected, essentially. I was craving emotional intimacy. I wanted to feel wanted, if I'm being totally honest. I wanted to feel desired, and I wasn't feeling that way from her, hadn't felt that way in months. And I had suggested going to marriage counseling a few times. She didn't want to go, and I didn't know what else to do. That wasn't a good excuse to cheat, but that's what I did out of desperation, basically. And again, I tell you that story not to justify what I did. There's no justification for cheating. But cheating is not the problem. Cheating is the symptom of the problem. And 99% of the time, the problem was created by both people in the relationship, not just one. But cheating is not the answer to that problem. Anyway, I hope you like this video. Again, if you have something you want to see in a future video, leave me that in a comment down below.